Aloha everyone, good morning. My name is Donna Shapiro. I'm with the Hawaii Ulu Co-op. Oh, is this better? Okay. Sorry about that. So we actually have a hard stop at 10 because we have to get to Waimea for our son's soccer game. So I'm going to try to go through the slides really quick so there's some time for questions before we have to run out. Sorry about the rush. So our presentation is called Ulu Agroforestry in Hawaii, Small Farms, Big Research. The ulu industry, like many industries in Hawaii, is really dominated by very, very small farms. So go ahead, Anthony. Thank you. So I'm going to start by talking about the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative, which is a farmer-owned co-op. Got some members in the room. Nice to see you all. In our collective production, we represent a majority of Hawaii's industry, about 2/3 to 3/4 of the planted trees and current supply. And in partnership with NOAA at UH, we've been able to guide some of the research that's been going on for the last decade to help inform breadfruit production best practices and support farmers. So the Hawaii Ulu Co-op has over 200 farmer members, and our goal is to revitalize ulu as a viable crop and dietary staple in Hawaii. We really do this by leveraging the co-op model as a way to empower farmers and give them a stake in the greater value chain of the breadfruit industry. We started in summer of 2016. We just celebrated our 9-year anniversary. And when we started our own farm, we have a farm in South Kona. We're married, by the way, so that's why we also have a farm together. But our farm was started in early 2015, and I think within a few months we realized that we were going to face some big obstacles as an individual producer. First of all, we didn't have a lot of production. Breadfruit is a tree, and it takes at least 5 years really to start producing, and about 10 years to reach full maturity. We did have some mature trees on the property, so we could start selling some fruit right away, but then you run into the shelf life challenge. Ulu is highly perishable, like many tropical fruits. Without refrigeration, you have a couple of days. Even with refrigeration, you only have about a week, so you don't have a lot of time to move it. The next challenge is seasonality. Ulu can fruit throughout the year, but it produces most of its fruit in a very small window in the fall, over about 2 to 3 months. And the last challenge, which is, I think, applicable to all sort of indigenous underutilized crops, is that consumers are no longer very familiar with this food. They don't know how to eat it, how to prepare it. They're not accustomed to it. So there's this big consumer education hurdle to overcome. And all of these things in combination, as I said, are bigger problems than a single farm can solve, right? These are public problems, they're societal problems, they're problems for the entire ag industry. And so it was clear that we needed a producer organization that could address them. And in Hawaii, you need 3 members, 3 farmers to start a co-op, and very quickly we identified 2 others, so we knew we could do it. But we cast a wider net. We identified 9. And in summer of 2016, we incorporated with 9 founding members. Our focus is ulu, but we do promote regenerative agroforestry, so diversified farming, and that's reflective of Hawaii's ag industry. Most farmers are small and diversified. They're not growing a single crop. We recognized we needed to process. We needed a way to extend shelf life from the very beginning, and fortunately, Sweet Cane Cafe was one of our founding members, so we operated in the back of their cafe for the first year. And the goal is really for the co-op to take on everything beyond the farm gate so that farmers can focus on farming, because that is challenging enough. And we hope that we're also building a scalable model that can demonstrate opportunities for other industries in Hawaii. So by the end of our first year, this is fiscal years, so by the end of FY17, we had 12 members, and the co-op has grown organically ever since. We now have over 200 members across 4 islands. Go ahead, Anthony, thank you. And who are our farmers? So they're geographically diverse. We have farmers on Maui, Oahu, and Kauai, but the majority are still here. Collectively, we've planted almost 7,500 trees, which I think represents about 3/4 of the industry or so. Noah would know better. On average, our farmers have only planted about an acre of ulu, about 40 trees. A quarter have 5 trees or less, so they're really backyard growers. 3/4 are backyard or part-time commercial, so only a quarter are full-time commercial farmers. And then in some ways, we differ slightly from Hawaii's overall ag demographic. Our farmers tend to be younger, more often beginning farmers, new to farming, and about 2.5 times the proportion of Native Hawaiians in Hawaii's ag industry are represented in the co-op, so about 22% compared to 9%. This is just an overview of how a co-op works. If you're unfamiliar, we are a very traditional farmer-owned cooperative. We're not creating this model. We're just applying it locally. So our members own the co-op, and they patronize by supplying fruit to the co-op. So patronage is a co-op term that means using the co-op services. And as a member owner of the co-op, that is your number one responsibility. Use our services by selling us your crop. And then the co-op aggregates supply from, again, over 200 farmers to reach economies of scale. We're not quite there yet. I'll get into that later. But our economy of scale target is about 1 million pounds. And this last year, we were at about 600,000 pounds. So we're on our way, but we're not quite there. And then the co-op does the processing, value-added product development, marketing, education, which has been really important because of that third challenge I explained about ulu, that most consumers still don't know how to use it. And hopefully by the end of the year, we've sold all this crop and profits are redistributed back to our farmers according to patronage. So if Farmer Keith supplies 10% of our ulu production in a given year, he would be entitled to 10% of our profit distribution at the end of the year. It's kind of how it works. So you can see our historical and projected volumes here. Green is ulu, and orange is not ulu, which we lovingly call co-crops. That's our reference to anything that's not ulu, and we have diversified because our farmers are diversified and ulu is seasonal. So that's really important. And you can see that by 2030, we expect to be at about 1.3 million pounds per year in total, and that's our current break-even point, so that's what we're working toward. Co-crops play a really important role both for our farmers and for the co-op because they're faster yielding. So in just a couple years, you can have a really good kalo harvest, for example, or mamaki harvest, or within a few months, you can have a sweet potato harvest or a pala'ai harvest. And that way you can generate revenues faster and have some cash flow to keep your business going. And so that's really the critical point about co-crops for both our farmers and the co-op. We have secured 2 Hawaii Island processing facilities. The one on top is the Honalo Marshalling Yard, which is owned by the state, managed by the Department of Agriculture, and it's one of 10 food hub facilities managed by DOA in this way. Another one that's leased to a co-op is the Kamoela Vacuum Cooling Plant in Waimea, so you might be familiar with that for cold weather vegetables. Here in Hilo, we lease the Alai Post-Harvest Facility from Kamehameha Schools. So we were their first user in 2019, and we've been expanding our footprint over there as well. And then in order to serve our farmers on other islands, we've set up aggregation and processing partnerships with organizations on Maui, Oahu, and Kauai. And we continue to develop and expand those as we have more farmers in different regions. And that's really key because of ulu's shelf life and the fact that our farmers are so small. They can't, drive 5 hours round trip to develop a load of fruit because they might only have 25 pounds. So it's just not practical. And I think that's been a really important approach for us, is aligning our services with the reality that our farmers are facing on the ground. And oftentimes those business decisions would not make sense for an organization that wasn't a farmer co-op, because as a farmer co-op, we prioritize our farmers in every decision we make. And that's not always economically sensible, but we do it anyway because of kind of our foundational values. Go ahead. So when we started the co-op, we really just produced the product in the middle, which is minimally processed ulu. It's a very simple peel, steam, and freeze. At that point, it's ready to sell either to restaurants, schools, hospitals, or home consumers. COVID definitely shook up our business model because schools stopped buying local. They switched to a grab-and-go menu. Restaurants closed. And so we really had to diversify both our product line and our target customers. And so we developed these 7 different customer segments that we tried to maintain as our diversified market base. And they're listed here: manufacturers, institutions, food service distributors, food hubs, grocers, community nonprofits, and home buyers. And home buyers are the smallest section. So we really are a B2B business, and that helps us be pretty lean in our operations. Go ahead. So we often get asked about market potential for ulu, if there's room for more trees and more farmers, and if we're even going to be able to sell the 1 million pounds we project in 2030. And my answer to that question is that we're not necessarily trying to supply existing demand for ulu. We're trying to supplant imported staple foods. Not all of them, of course, that wouldn't be possible, but Hawaii currently imports over 99% of its staple foods, primarily rice, wheat, and potatoes. Potatoes are a great example because they're the smallest in poundage of those 3 imports. We import about 25 million pounds of potatoes per year. So by 2030, we will still only be offsetting 1/25 of potato imports. And if you've ever cooked with ulu, you probably know that ulu can be used for any recipe in place of potatoes. It's very similar, it's delicious, it's more nutritious. And so that's kind of our goal, is to not necessarily grow this brand new market for a different ingredient, but encourage people to maybe eat ulu instead of potatoes once a week, or rice, and so forth. And so I think when you look at it that way, there's huge opportunity because we have barely scratched the surface of Hawaii's staple food consumption. So what's next for us? Well, we are upgrading our facilities to handle the increasing volumes coming down the road. We just received our building permit for the Honalo facility upgrades yesterday, which is amazing. We've been waiting for 7 months, so we're really excited. And Department of Ag has been a big supporter there. We're continuing to strengthen our local product market fit. So what is it that locals want to eat with ulu in it? You know, whether that's frozen or flour or value-added products. And then continuing education. So continuing to increase Hawaii's ono for ulu. And we're doing this through education, especially with youth. We have a pretty robust farm-to-school program, but also through partnering with established manufacturers like Diamond Bakery, which recently released an ulu animal cracker, which is increasingly being served in schools and preschools, and that's really exciting. So I'll pass it on to Noah to share a bit about his breadfruit research. Thank you.
We're married, but we still can't coordinate our outfits. She's much more formal. Sorry. But yeah, my name's Noah Lincoln. I'm a professor at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in an inaugural position called Indigenous Crops and Cropping Systems. It's our first position at CTAR in its over 100-year history that has explicitly focused on our traditional crops. And so we're really proud to be, I guess, the first person to be able to serve in that role. And so I created the Indigenous Cropping Systems Laboratory, and our mission is to document and understand traditional crops, cropping systems, methods, and norms to support appropriate revitalization of indigenous food systems in Hawaii while serving as a model for the world. And we really emphasize the appropriate part. We do think there's a proper and an improper way to bring our traditional foods back into our food system. And so we really use a kind of PICO framework and really trying to ground our work that we do in understanding traditional knowledge, values, and systems to provide a cultural relevance and foundation to all of our research. And then bring that forward to integrate our research, education, and outreach to move our food system forward from a scientific and industry perspective, but also ensuring we're grounded in that cultural perspective and values as well. And all of this is not just done in the context of the present, but we're always thinking about where are we trying to go into the future, and really grounding ourselves in looking forward, multi-generational perspective of Hawaii, and seeking to create lasting and transformative change, not just kind of immediate industry fixes. And so our kind of 3 core values are really kaya ulu, community-based development, aina momona, or environmental values, making sure what we do aligns with ecological outcomes, and na'au'au, or cultural traditions and knowledge as well. And why indigenous crops? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. Actually just got back from Florida last night at an international symposium on underutilized crop species. And there's a lot of talk about why, should underutilized crops be brought back into our food systems. And there's a whole host of reasons. But probably most important are the middle 2, that there's a tremendous impact on human health and nutrition. Someone presented this really cool research of the top 10 vegetables eaten in the US, and it ranged from like broccoli and lettuce and tomatoes and things like that, and the number of bioactive compounds in those top 10 vegetables. And in total, they represent about 4,800 biologically active compounds. Only 200 are common across those 10 vegetables. So broccoli alone had like over 900 unique bioactive compounds. And these things have an incredible impact on our function and operations in our body. And eating diverse foods, are impacting our health in ways science doesn't even understand yet, and we're just scratching the surface of that. So there's tremendous impacts on our human health and benefits, as well as the climate adaptation. And under a changing climate, I think a great example is that as a country, we are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars a year into developing more heat-resistant varieties of corn. And meanwhile, a lot of those properties of corn could be replaced with tropical crops that already have heat resistant baked into them. And you could consider that for a whole bunch of other environmental things, land degradation, salinity, drought tolerance. And so there's a lot of adaptive capacity in our underutilized crops. And I think breadfruit falls into that as well. We can go ahead. And so we've done a lot to really document and understand our traditional systems in thinking about bringing that forward. And Donna shared the genesis of the co-op as through our farm, Malakalaulu. But actually the genesis of our farm was research that I had done as part of our PhD looking at the Kalaulu, the traditional breadfruit belt of Kona, and how productive that system was. And that was part of the impetus and inspiration for us to go and try to start restoring part of that system and bringing it back through our farming activities. And so I do think, this understanding of the past and bringing these stories forward not only provide a scientific basis or understanding for wanting to do certain types of agriculture, but the stories are also inspirational and can help us think about where we want to go in the future. And so when I started at UH, breadfruit was already kind of high interest for me because of my PhD research. And I don't say this a lot anymore, but when I started, I did a departmental presentation and laid out how breadfruit was going to be a cornerstone of my research moving forward. And two separate of my bosses, both the chair of my department and the dean of CTAR at that time, pulled me into their office afterwards and told me I cannot work on breadfruit. And when I asked why, they said, it's not a major crop in Hawaii, like nobody's growing it. Who are you even pretending you're serving? And I'm like, well, how are we going to evolve out of our current system if we're only going to support the status quo? And we talk all the time about where we want to get to, but, I think as Sharon, very realistically outlined, right, like, where is the impact going to be? And so we do need to support, right, the aspects of Hawaii's agriculture that are contributing to our agriculture. And it is a small number of farms that are growing most of the food, but that can't be exclusively at the expense of investing in the aspects of our food system we want to grow. And so 10 years ago, breadfruit wasn't on the National Agricultural Statistics Survey. It wasn't a substantial part of our state's agriculture. But that's changed. We were on the last NASS survey, and we're listed, and we're being tracked, and when we're on the map, and it's growing, and you see the trajectory of the co-op. And I think it's a good lesson that we need to invest in areas even when right now it might not make the most sense, because we do have a vision and we have a place that we want to get to. So we've done a lot of work in trying to support that. And just kind of run through maybe some of the things that we've done. You can go to the next slide. And so just some of the ways that our lab has kind of supported the growth of the industry and worked with the Ulu Co-op. One is through propagation. So access to trees was a big barrier to expansion. I just looked through all our numbers last night. We have now propagated and distributed over 15,000 trees in Hawaii. And we've been able to donate a lot of those to schools and nonprofits. We've been able to sell vast majority of our trees, over 10,000 trees, to farmers, and we're able to sell them at cost and keep those general costs low. And then we do sell to some other buyers like landscapers and hotels, and that's where we gouge them and get the money, and then we donate to the schools to offset. But yeah, we have a tissue culture facility now, which has allowed us to really ramp up recently. So Elisa, our technician, is amazing. She's producing about 150 breadfruit trees per week now. And so that's really allowed us, and there's still a huge waiting list and demand. So we'll be continuing that program. We've done a lot of work looking at habitat suitability of breadfruit. And so this is a map of our state suitability. And we've worked with the Ulu Co-op to help integrate this into their projections so that they can understand not just generic numbers about how productive breadfruit is, but very site-specific projections on yields and growth to really help get a handle not only on projections, but when new people come in and start asking, hey, I want to grow breadfruit, we can kind of be like, well, where are you? And is this going to be a good spot to grow breadfruit? And if not, maybe you should grow something else, Yeah.
Can you tell us, like, the maximum elevations that it's plausible to get harvest off, like, a Hawaiian and off
Yeah, and we can,
or like East Hawaii?
yeah, if you look at approximate, you're going to start seeing yield declines on the windward sides above about 500 feet. And that'll decline pretty linearly up until about 1,1500, at which point the trees will grow, but really not produce substantially. Yeah, and it's largely temperature driven. So as our climate warms, maybe that will improve. The other big question we always get is around varieties. So we set up a statewide variety trial, growing multiple varieties at different locations across the state to start answering the question, which varieties are most cold tolerant, which varieties can handle the wind the best, different types of soils and whatnot. So that's ongoing work that we have. We've done a fair bit on seasonality. We ran a 2-year citizen science project where we got 200 people across the state to adopt a breadfruit tree. And over a 2-year period, they would go to that tree every 2 weeks and monitor the fruits and flower and able to get a better handle on seasonality, but also how that seasonality varies across the state. Done a lot of work on nutrient management. This is one of the biggest early questions we had from the farmers. And this is maybe a good chance to say that, with the Ulu Co-op, it's been a really powerful model because the way a cooperative extension system's supposed to work is you have the extension agents who interface with growers, and then they communicate that up to the researchers, and then the researchers go and they do research and they communicate that to the extension agents, and then the extension agents go back and educate farmers. But in Hawaii, it's really challenging, one, because we've lost so many extension agents, and two, because research has really, I don't want to say evolved, because it's kind of de-evolved, but it's changed in that it's really focused on chasing large national grants. And the metrics our researchers are given at the university is not about the impact they make in Hawaii. It's about how much research dollars they can bring in, how much publications they can get. And so what happens is our extension agents have largely become stranded, where they're kind of doing the research and trying to educate farmers. But through the Ulu Co-op, they've really served as the agent in a lot of ways. They have a membership manager position, and they have this great network. So they're able to leverage the network to gather the needs of the farmers and communicate that up to our research team. We're able to do the research. And then the Ulu Co-op does a great job of re-disseminating that information, and not just out to their growers, although their growers are their priority, but because they've built a great social network, they also get that information out very broadly to Hawaii's public and the farmings at large. But through that mechanism, nutrient management is something the farmers very early on were like, we need to understand this better. Ulu has a stigma of being like, oh, you put a tree in the ground and it grows forever and it produces fruit and you don't have to do anything. Which is kind of true, but at the same time, the better you manage it, right, the more production you're going to get. And so we've done a lot of work looking at nutrient management and putting out guides and providing technical assistance to farmers, doing the soil tests and the foliar nutrient tests for farmers, providing feedback and allowing them to improve their nutrient management of breadfruit. Another big one that came up from the farmers was around breadfruit and breadfruit diseases. And I'm not a pathologist at all, but through the university, we're able to access other expertise, partner with our USDA ARS, and put out a guide to understanding breadfruit diseases in Hawaii. You can go to the next slide. And then more recently, we started looking at harvest and post-harvest aspects of breadfruit. The co-op still deals with issues of farmers improperly harvesting. Breadfruit is challenging to evaluate its maturity. And so we're doing a lot of work now around maturity index and trying to understand the earliest point you can harvest different breadfruit varieties, because that has a big impact on its post-harvest shelf life. And then we've started looking increasingly at post-harvest storage. And the Ulu Co-op, even though they've grown their facilities and they've grown their equipment, they're still having losses and spoilage because of breadfruit's really, really short shelf life. And so we've been working with the USDA and with other partners to look at different methods to extend the shelf life of breadfruit. Because even a week or two makes a really, really big difference for the co-op. And then we've been doing other work that is maybe not as directly related, but again, may have implications in terms of marketing or partnerships. So we just had a master's student do some really great work looking at carbon sequestration rates associated with breadfruit. And built out a model so that we're now working with the Ulu Co-op's database to estimate how much carbon they have sequestered in their trees now, but also have a very accurate forecast of how much carbon they're going to sequester over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And again, that's a possibility to go to corporate sponsorship or other potential partners and tell a really good story, right, about, hey, by supporting this crop, you're not just supporting culture and local food, but you're also supporting these types of environmental outcomes. And then the last thing is we've just partnered tremendously with the Ulu Co-op on outreach and education. And it's nice because, CTAR, our communications office, for the last 5 years, we have one person in there, super overwhelmed. And the Ulu Co-op has, a videographer and a social media person and all this stuff. So we're able to do research, provide the knowledge and information, and then the Ulu Co-op can put a very beautiful, shiny user interface on it and put out really pretty, attractive videos and extension material that kind of packages, again, the information in a really beautiful format. And so we've partnered with them a lot to produce education materials, do a lot of farmer workshops and outreach and whatnot. And so, yeah, I think that was our presentation, and we invite you to join the revolution. Oh yeah, and I do all the logos and taglines. No. Sure.
I have a lot of clients on Oahu who have ulu trees in their yard, and I always get really sad when I see them all on the ground. I try to teach them tons of recipes like marinated bujunakarta that I learned from Lori, and it's really great. Is there a way I can get those to the cooperative easily?
Yeah.
So the question was, are you a landscaper? Yeah, so he has some clients on Oahu with trees that the fruit goes uneaten, and so how can he get that to the co-op? So this year, for the first time, we've limited ulu purchasing to members only. So step one will be for you to apply to join the co-op. We've streamlined our application process. It's all online now and really easy. The website is ulu.coop. So our main website is eatbreadfruit.com, which is geared toward the public and consumers. For farmers, we have a separate website. It's ulu.coop. The application is there. So that's step one. And then we have 2 drop-off sites on Oahu. One is at Kualoa Ranch on the east side, and the other is at Kahumana on the west side. So we don't have anything right in town right now. It's sort of in the more rural areas. But for members, there's a guaranteed market. So we never turn ulu away from our members as long as it meets the harvesting guidelines. And there's a stable price. So the members elect a 7-member board of directors, which is all farmers. And they set pay price every year, and then the price is held. So once you join, you can really rely on the market and the price.
I also have some ulu flower-based mosquito repellent over here if anyone wants to try it.
Awesome. So he has ulu flower-based mosquito repellent in the back, which I will definitely be trying. Thank you.
Is there a minimum number of trees to be grown at home?
Only 1 tree, so basically no minimum, but you do have to have a tree. We've considered increasing that threshold. It's really a board decision, and so far the board has said no, they want to be inclusive. And the reality is that if you're a backyard grower, 1 ulu tree can still produce more fruit than you're able to eat, and even give away in some cases. So we want to be an outlet for excess fruit so that that can get funneled into the food system and consumed.
About a year ago, you were posting some experimentation on the traditional fermentation of ulu. I'm wondering if that's something that we get access to. I have a wife that's
Nice. So the question was around the traditional fermentation of breadfruit. So for those of you who don't know, breadfruit was the primary staple on many Pacific islands. And as Donna elucidated, right, it's highly seasonal. And so they needed that to last through the years. And the way they would do that is to dig underground pits and put processed breadfruit in there and cover it, and it would go through a lactic acid fermentation, and that would preserve the breadfruit. Not just through the off season, but they would make bigger pits that would also set them up for bad drought years and things like that. And so we did finish that. It's actually sitting with our CTAR communications office. So the publication should be freely available really soon. But yeah, if you just want to like shoot me an email, I can send you the draft. And we worked with a couple different Micronesian families and looked at their method of doing it today. Because nobody digs pits today. They just do it in 5-gallon buckets or even like Ziploc bags in your cupboard and things like that. So it's a really cool, simple way to do it at home, and awesome to hear that you're doing that. But yeah, we're happy to share what we've found.
Have you reached out to the local repositories of each of the islands to be able to put plants on the repositories?
HCFG, yeah. Yeah, we talked about it a while ago when Maona was going to host, and then so anyway, I don't think we have trees in tropical fruit growers repositories.
Noe has trees already, right? At your farm. Yeah, I have 4 lulu trees. Sorry, so I eat them and we sell them all over.
Mhm.
But our people. So, in other words, Viola needs some trees on
Well, he's
Molokai.
wearing a Molokai Ulu vest, but he just had 2 of them
Yeah.
in the last month. And so I'm curious, if I did get to go tour that at farmer's market, how well was that received? There's 2 big projects, 3 actually, if you count Utah's, who have experimental trees going on. But
Yeah.
the repository, they didn't have any.
Yeah, so on Molokai specifically, we were going to bring a bunch of trees to give away, but because of the new concerns around CRB and whatnot, they respectfully asked that we did not bring anything, so we didn't. Yeah, we offered, yeah. But we do have a trial site we set up at Ho'olehua, which is now the UH Maui College. Yeah, so those are our trees, and we're like happy to have them be propagated and distributed. And so that has Fiti, Otea, Ulu Maoli, Ma'afala.
There's a
Yeah.
fence with about 25 feet and then it's our
Oh, right there. Oh, okay. Well, we could just like say it's part of your repository. Okay, yeah, Mark.
No, on the propagation of ulu seems to have gotten a lot better than when it first got going.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting to the point where a homeowner or small grower might be able to do their own propagation. And I think a little bit of shared knowledge might really help, because I noticed guys are doing cuttings now,
Mhm.
branch cuttings, and putting them in a little mist house with a higher number
Yep.
hormone, and they're getting really good success. So
Yep.
that would break the door open a lot.
Yeah, and
And
we've
varietals, we got varietal success with dry climates. It's still a challenge.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we're, have a bunch of propagation resources out there. We still do a bunch of workshops, and nothing would make me happier than to have to retire our propagation effort, because it takes a lot of time,
Eli's my tenant, so you gotta keep him.
It'll help diversify the germ plasma, because
Yeah.
they're only getting one varietal, and Ma'afala is not working a lot of things.
Yeah, and I will say there's still some major challenges with some varieties. So I've never seen a tree so variable in its ease of propagation. So most things like Fiti, Otea, Lepet, a lot of those varieties are pretty simple. But there's still some highly desirable varieties, Afara, Maopo, that, they're really, really hard to get to go. And that's where we should focus on those and have other people do those. So if there's ways we can partner on that, we'd be super happy to, share everything we've learned. Yeah, we did some joint workshops with Eli,
You gotta come up with
Well, we have one.
on propagation.
On propagation, yes, for free on the Ulu Co-op website. could use more detail, probably.
Question.
Yeah. No, sorry.
A friend of mine makes blue wine. I was just wondering if other people are.
I have never heard of ulu wine. I've heard of ulu beer, ulu vodka, even ulu gin, but ulu wine is a first. So how was it?
Very light.
Oh, awesome.
You gotta be desperate, I think. Is that why you like it?
It's pretty easy.
I like
Just leave it on the
that.
ground, go out, and
Yeah.
We'll say we have been doing R&D around ulu alcohols as potential future products.
Can I help?
Taste test.
Next time we'll have an alcohol.
I have a question. You've seen that video, right, where the guy goes door to door, knocks on the door and says, "Can I give you an ulu? And I'll plan it for you." And he literally goes and he gives one to every single, to all these people in the conference left in July. You ever seen that?
It was like a few years ago.
Yeah. And also, I have a Lulu and my first Lulu, and it got a season deal. And they came over, they tested it, they took some, back to their test lab. It took them 3 months to tell me for some reason that yes, this is the deal, which I've actually seen situation like they would just cut out the tree. And I'm like, cut out my tree, I don't think so. So anyway, I cut off the part that was, I heard people go up the part they don't hear. So I cut that part out, and then I sealed it, and it produced this year like 10 So they're really serious about points.
They are really resilient trees, and actually Debbie at your table has some experience with QLB and the USDA nematode treatment, which has been working really well. So
So, could you share with everyone just a little bit about your culinary resources that you have on your website? Because they have been a game changer for me. I have used so many of them for my ulu, and it has changed my entire outlook on this product.
nice. So the question was about our culinary resources. So we have a big recipes database, basically. Gosh, I don't know how, it has hundreds of recipes, and you can search by, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, ulu maturity stage. So do you have an immature fruit, which I think Lori contributed the first pickle recipe to, immature, mature, semi-ripe, and all the way baker's ripe. You can search by vegetarian, kid-friendly. We even had a diabetic-friendly search field at one time. So that's a helpful repository. We also have an Ulu ambassador program where we partner with chefs, culinary teachers. We've had several DOE and private school culinary teachers be part of the network, and just other, Ulu enthusiasts who we kind of help give them a platform. And so they develop recipes for us or do cooking workshops, go into schools. Just this week we were at Kamehameha School's Hawaii Island campus in the high school doing an Ulu mochi workshop and tasting panel with lunch. So I think that the culinary sort of solving that culinary hurdle is definitely the game changer, Nancy. I agree. And that's where a lot of opportunity can come, And it's also been a great place for partnerships because, and I like this part of the co-op as well, that it's a community endeavor, right? It's not just one person. This is for the whole community to be a part of. And if you're not a farmer, you can still contribute in lots of different ways, including by providing recipes.
So one of the hats I wear is Vice President of American Culinary Federation in Hawaii. So if you want to do a meeting for Konokohala Chefs Association,
That'd be great.
okay,
Let's
I'll
do
set
it.
it up.
Awesome.
Be careful what you wish for.
I'm ready.
But, yeah, maybe at the theatery, in Aloha
Oh, yeah.
Theater, since my son's a chef there now, and he used to buy all of Deb's ulu.
Nice. I remember your son when he was at Merriman's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a long time ago.
I
It's
worked
like,
there with him back then.
oh, really?
Mhm.
I-
Yeah.
I remember Noah, just when he got out of high school, so you say you were proud of somebody, I was thinking, how proud I am of you guys. You know, you've done an amazing job, you know, just, and it, I really appreciate your help. You know, so many farmers find their way, essentially, oh, what do I grow? I get that, still get that question 30 times a week. Well, we got Lulu over there, and a Cha-Cha over there, and Ma Prang over there, but we got Lulu, yeah. And I got some that Eli did on one of the trees, and I had 144 tissue cultures from somebody, and which we grew up to. So we got 3 or 4 types in our repository in Kona, which you should visit sometime. Again.
Maybe one more question in the back?
Sure.
Yeah, I must say I've been very impressed by the growth and your marketing strategy and all that. But I'm particularly interested in your comments about cultural appropriateness in particularly Pacific Islanders, because Hulu is such a traditional lodge. And I would maybe we can put them aside, but you know, engaging them in a respectful way, they help you greatly. Firstly, to expand the market and help them access market, but also facilitate the propagation process. I mean, they're growing for millennia, so you don't need to be propagating it, they're already propagating it. So I would love to learn more about your efforts along that line. But in the marketing strategy, I particularly appreciate the blue fields and thousands of people. So there's such a potential to expand that. I think you should be able to achieve your 2030 goals.
Thank you.
My name is Ram and I'm with DAB
Sharon will get us the money to do that, right?
Yeah. Sorry, and Derek, you had a question?
So related to the suitability line, it looks like the blue belt was red, those
Oh, it is a green, yeah. On that, yeah, it's a little higher up the mountainside, yeah. And okay, we gotta, yeah. All right.
I just have one suggestion for the rotting oodle. It can be used to make jada microbial solution, and then you can spread it soil drench.
Nice. Yeah. Suggestion to use rotting ulu for jadam and other IMO type applications.
You get this one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Noah, Dana. Huh? They have to go, yeah. That's it.
But we have our emails, or we're always happy to talk to people offline, and yeah, very happy to follow up on.
Are you waving, Sharon, or you had?
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.